All right. Hello, my name's Kulia. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And, I stumbled over that. She, her, hers. And I'm a student specialist at the Center for Women and Gender Equity, along with the BSU Vice President. It's my honor to be able to welcome our very special guests tonight. We have Wanda Johnson from the Oscar Grant Foundation, who is also our social justice practitioner in a resident. And this is her third Wednesdays with Wanda session. We're very excited to have her continuously. It's been great. We also have Pastor Kenneth Glasgow from the Ordinary People Society. He's an advocate for formerly incarcerated people and fights for voter access. In addition to our typical conversations that we are going to have around voting and also being aware of how to keep engaged and focused post-election, from a conversation that we've had as a group, we decided to also talk about the importance of giving formerly incarcerated people the right of vote and the impact it had on this past election. So without further ado, I'm going to pass along the mic to Wanda and Pastor Kenneth.
And actually, so sorry. I have kind of a video format here. I have a screen that I'm going to share, if that's okay. Let's see here. While I'm getting the screen sharing up, Wanda and Pastor Kenny, can you both do a quick introduction of yourself, and then I'll start screen sharing.
My name is Wanda Johnson. I am the mother of Oscar Grant, who was killed January 1st, 2009 at the Fruitvale BART station in Oakland, California. And many of you know me. I've been as a practitioner for the last few sessions. I definitely have enjoyed the interaction that I received from each of you who have participated in our dialogues that we have had. Thank you.
Pastor Kenny, can you introduce yourself?
Pastor Kenneth Sharpton, Glasgow, the founder of the Ordinary People Society and the formerly incarcerated convicted people and families movement, as well as the Prodigal Child Project and Let My People Vote. I've been doing this work since 1994. We started TOPS, the Ordinary People Society, and then delved into Let My People Vote, and then into the Prodigal Child Project and the formerly incarcerated convicted people movement. And what we have been able to do in our mission and in our vision is to raise our voices of directly impacted people to the forefront, because we felt that people were practicing malpractice by representing those directly impacted people, but not allowing us the opportunity to speak in our own voices, and not even coming to us to find out what the symptoms were. So that caused them to be committing malpractice. We thank God now that here 20 years later, we're able to say that that is not happening, and we're building a movement and have a movement now that empowers all. Thank you.
Okay, and Pastor Kenneth is coming to us from Alabama. So he's got some really interesting things that he's going to be sharing, but there's just so much to cover. So part of the reason that we brought in Pastor to this conversation is that as I was talking with different students about what are we going to talk, like what are you interested in? Wanda has started us talking about voting this year, and then people said, yeah, let's talk more about what it looks like when people who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated get access or don't. And then I thought about Pastor Kenneth because of the work that he does. And I do thank you, Pastor Kenneth, for joining us on a moment's notice. I appreciate it, from Alabama, and you're on a different time zone, and I know you started your day very early. And I also thank Wanda for being super flexible and open to some amendments. And also thank you all for coming. So I'm just going to, because the election is so huge and there's so much going on, we're just going to start with a 4-minute clip. And then there's 2 short clips from formerly incarcerated people who had a chance to vote for their first time this election. And then Pastor Kenneth will speak a little bit about voting access and some of the obstacles that he encountered and helped advocate for this particular election. And he might share a little bit of his own background. And Wanda is really excited to talk a little bit about the Electoral College and what's at stake with that, and how does it affect communities of color and beyond. So I'm going to screen share for a moment here. If I can, here we go. Let me see if I can make this get on present mode. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I should have had this up to screen share, but that's kind of the plan of action for tonight. And here's the names of the guests in case you wanted to look up other of their amazing work and projects. So I'm going to play this clip about Kamala, the first woman to be elected vice president, the first woman of color, so many firsts. And it's an interesting piece because it's 4 minutes and it talks a little bit, it scratches the surface about some of the historical struggles that have been on the forefront of our country. So I'm just going to play this, hang in there for 4 minutes.
For the first time in American history, a woman will be a heartbeat away from the presidency, and not just any woman, a woman of color. This is nothing new for Kamala Harris. For most of her adult life, when barriers were broken, she was often to blame.
Throughout her life, barriers have been broken all around her, from the DA's office to the Senate, and now the White House. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris now set to assume the second highest office in the land.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
The first Black and Indian American to run and be elected as vice president.
Every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities.
This moment has come full circle for Harris, shattering a glass ceiling for race and gender. Her sorority sisters at Howard University's Alpha Kappa Alpha, the oldest historically Black sorority, taking it all in.
Ultimately, the final numbers showed, what direction we want to go in. And so that is what makes me excited. So with the tears I ultimately shed will be tears of joy.
In California, where she was elected the state's top prosecutor, she was the first woman and first Black woman to hold that office as well. And then in 2016, the first Black American to represent California in the Senate.
I am so proud to represent this beautiful, diverse state.
It was there her combative style took center stage, coming to national attention at the Senate hearing for Judge Brett Kavanaugh on his alleged sexual misconduct.
Can you think of any laws that give government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm happy to answer a more specific question.
Male versus female.
There are medical procedures.
Later, showcasing her abilities in a fiery debate with Vice President Pence.
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay.
The pandemic sidelined what would have been her chance to introduce herself to voters. Harris took to the road in the waning days of the campaign, hitting up cities in crucial states that dominated headlines leading up to their apparent victory Saturday night.
Because we all know from the time the polls open tomorrow morning until they close, every minute counts. So we cannot let up because it ain't over till it's over.
Her latest win now puts her on the global stage. What she's accomplished has made her an inspiration for little girls, women, and people of color everywhere.
That's very empowering and eye-opening, knowing that you could potentially do everything that you want to do just because you have an example set for you.
I keep thinking about that 25-year-old Indian woman, all of 5 feet tall, who gave birth to me at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. On that day, she probably could have never imagined that I would be standing before you now.
Some of her former opponents now showing their support. Senator Elizabeth Warren tweeting, throughout her career, she has been unafraid and an inspiration to millions of women who see themselves in her.
Now is when the real work begins. The hard work, the necessary work, the good work, the essential work to save lives and beat this epidemic.
But while Harris has attempted to appear more progressive,
in many cities in America, over 1/3 of their city budget goes to police. So we have to have this conversation. What are we doing?
During the primary, Harris was pressed on her record with policing during her time as a prosecutor.
I'm deeply concerned about this record.
I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work.
In a time when the relationship between people of color and law enforcement is under extreme scrutiny. Good Morning America's Robin Roberts spoke with Biden and Harris just after their nomination.
There's also been a national conversation about policing. And you know the name that you have, Kamala, Top Cop. And the book that you wrote 10 years ago, Smart on Crime, where you concluded by saying that you wanted to see more police on the street. Do you still feel that way?
Listen, I think that there is no question. First of all, when I wrote that book, Black Lives Matter did not exist. And I give full credit to the brilliance of that movement in terms of what it has done to advance a conversation that needed to happen a long time ago.
Harris butted heads with her running mate last year when she sought the Democratic nomination for president.
Goes me on me, kid. You good?
She criticized her future running mate after he touted his record of bipartisanship.
It's personal, and it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
President-elect Biden will be 78 years old when he's inaugurated, the oldest president in the history of the country by 8 years, taking the title from outgoing President Donald Trump.
Look, I view myself as a bridge, not as anything else. There's an entire generation of leaders you saw stand behind me. They are the future of this country.
A future that will fall to young people, women, and people of color across the country.
No, you could be president, but not right now. You have to be over the age of 35.
That hope to one day take center stage and take up that mantle that Harris first bore.
And when our very democracy was on the ballot in this election, with the very soul of America at stake, and the world watching, you ushered in a new day for America.
And as she says, she may be the first, but will not be the last.
Okay. And then off to the right, we see, there's a protest that's going on, and those have been going on across the country, with one side saying count all votes and the other one saying stop the votes. It's a very kind of unique moment in time, because I want to have enough time for our speakers, and I want to here's a snippet. I apologize. Okay. There we go. So now I'm going to move on to the next. Oh, shoot. There we go. Actually, I'm going to, if everybody can still see it, I'm going to keep it like, wait, are you able to see this? Or I'm not, you're not. I'm so sorry. Share screen again. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and show the one more clip, and this is some people who are voting for the first time this particular election, and then we'll hear from our two speakers.
Well, I didn't know them. I feel the energy of my foreparents, my grandfathers, my great-grandfathers, my great-great-great-grandfathers. And by studying the history of America, I know what they went through. I knew that this part of a struggle had to be achieved for us to get the recognition we need within this country. Because if we can't put the people in office that make the decisions, then they don't care nothing about us. Well, I feel.
After I was released from prison, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, I couldn't do that, not even to vote. so much that bombarded me after I was released from prison. No matter how much I tried and no matter how much I had suffered, it was block after block after block after block.
If I go vote, when they're saying I may owe something, I'm breaking the rules. I don't want to put a blemish and say, see, ex-felons are still doing what they want to do. They don't want to play by the rules.
For some people, having a $10,000 fine when you come out of jail is something that will stay with you for the rest of your life because you don't have extra money. You're just trying to get a job as a person with a felony conviction.
To this day, I am not sure if there's something that I owe. Not 100% sure. It may be. Much as I want to vote, I can't do it because I want to play by the rules.
Was a meaningful experience. The vote doesn't mean that you belong to this party or to the other party. The vote means that you vote for the people who understand and listen your problems. Voting for me with that knowledge and with the joyful moment that I was part of it was a meaningful experience.
When you finish your term in prison, you should be able not only vote, but have access to Pell Grants, have access to be able to get housing, have access to be able to move along the way.
Okay, let's see if we can go. Okay, so we're going to go, sorry. I'm going to actually stop sharing for right now, just so we can see everybody. So Pastor Kenneth, I think this is a great place to hear from you in terms of voting access and what you're doing, and also I think we're all very curious about what the political climate is like in Alabama, where you are right now. So I'll hand over the floor to you, and then when you're done, we'll hand it over to Wanda, and then we'll have some discussion time after.
So I did 14 years in prison. I got out in 2001. As you heard me allude earlier, we started TOPS in 1994 while I was still incarcerated in Florida. 7 years later, I got out in 2001 and we continued to work. However, when I got out, I found out I couldn't vote. And I got very, very angry. And I said, okay, if I can't vote, I'm gonna make sure every goddamn body I know can vote. And I started going to register people to vote who have felonies and all that. But I also started going inside the jails. And that kind of really peeved a lot of people off. I mean, really pissed them off, especially here in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Even to the point here 20 years later, I'm still fighting. And if you study or do a Google on me, you'll see every other year or every 2 or 3 years, they come at me with all kinds of charges and this and that and the other. The biggest charges they came at me with was trying to charge me complicity with capital murder, because I drove one of the guys. I got 3 halfway houses. I don't call them halfway. I call them transitional houses. We don't do nothing halfway. And I was driving one of them to look for his car. He ended up getting in the fight, killing somebody. They tried to charge me with it. But it was right after we won the election in December 2017 with Senator Doug Jones. And if you look it up, you'll see we got over 10,000 people, 20,000 people to help cross him across the finish line, changing a voting apparatus in Alabama where the Republicans ruled the United States Senate in that election for over 25 years. We changed it. What we did was we continued the work of going inside the jails and getting people to vote. And I messed around and found out that there was a constitutional glitch. That glitch was called the Moral Turpitude Act, meaning that people that had crimes not, N-O-T, not involving moral turpitude should have never lost their voting rights. And so with them not losing their voting rights, it meant that, what it meant was that they should have never took their rights in the first place, so they never lost them. So this includes people that's in jails and in prisons, as well as people that's formerly incarcerated. So people with possession of drugs and this and that should have never lost their voting rights. We started concentrating on those type of people. What we do at TOPS, we serve about 300 people a day in different areas, Dothan, Alabama, different areas all around. We serve people food that are homeless and hungry. We do the H&H. We also do the M&M, that's a mentoring and monitoring program, as well as the Prodigal Child Project, which consists of our voting apparatus, teaching people how to get their voting rights and getting people to the polls and getting them their rights. What we have been able to accomplish in Alabama is insurmountable, being that right now on the absentee ballot, Ms. Sharon, we have on the Alabama absentee ballot, I am currently incarcerated in jail or/prison and have not committed a crime of moral turpitude. That's the first one in the history of any state in the United States that is on the actual ballot.
Can you say that for us one more time, just so we can make sure we all heard that? That sounds like big, important.
Yeah, so on the absentee ballot in Alabama, it says the last option for checking on why you need an absentee ballot says, I am currently incarcerated in jail/prison and have not committed the crime of moral turpitude. We also won Mississippi. We haven't did that, blowed it up in the media or anything because we knew that they'll try to lock me up again. But we just got that done last year as well. And it's the same principles as it is in Alabama, where they can vote out of jail and prison depending on what kind of crime they have. The main thing that we've been able to do is change the language. We changed the language through our voting because we wanted people to stop calling us convicted felons or offenders or inmates, stuff like that. People that are felons and all that, and actually just change it to call us people that are currently and formerly incarcerated. The importance of this is that people don't even realize throughout this country, even if you have not won a lawsuit like I did in 2008, first we won it out in Florida in 2007, then y'all know the new governor came in, repealed it, and then I got colleagues that had to do Amendment 4 in Florida this last couple of years in order to repeal what he did for my executive order. So I knew to do the lawsuit in Alabama, and now we got it done in Mississippi. But the importance of this is knowing that everybody that's locked up in jail, no matter what state you're in, especially up there in California, I know Darcy, Nunn, and all of us and Nunn are doing it as well. I converse with them a lot and train them and do a lot of different stuff with them. They necessarily haven't lost their voting rights, especially if they're awaiting trial and haven't been convicted. One of the biggest things that you're going to see, especially when you look me up, they did a Breitbart report and all that kind of stuff. Don't believe the hype, but believe that when you're effective as an advocate, that they're going to come after you. And especially when you're changing their voting apparatus and their political spectrum. We demolished Roy Moore. And so they came pretty strong. But the importance that you have to realize, especially as students and new upcoming advocates, is that you don't quit. The more they come after you, the more you win. And Gottman Buddha said it best. He said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. They're fighting us. We're winning. But people that are incarcerated in jails can vote if they have not been convicted of a crime, if they have not been to court, or look at your state constitution and see what kind of crimes really, really take out voting rights and what don't. This is where we were very significant and we got a lot of work done. We're taking it all across the country. I know y'all see the jail vote everywhere. I have a toolkit I introduced back in 2012. It's going across the country now. Everybody's going to the jail vote, and we've been very, very effective with it. I don't know what else you want me to talk about, Ms. Sharon, but what is
No, this is great. I just had one clarifying question and then one thing I'd love for you to talk to everybody about. So the importance of having that check mark on the absentee ballot, whether like if the reason you can't vote in person is because you're incarcerated, the importance of that is because that way they're documenting that this portion of people gets access to voting. Is that right?
Well, the main thing about it is there's only 2 states that you can actually vote out of prison and jail, and that is Maine and Vermont. That's the way it used to be before my lawsuit in Florida, 2007, then 2008, Alabama, and now Mississippi. And they never lost their voting rights. But of course, let's look at proportion. Let's look at the general population in Maine and Vermont. 7% Black and Hispanics, they're people of color in Maine, and 9% in Vermont. So of course, they never lost their voting rights. When you get it on a ballot, the absentee ballot, it marks the fact that they cannot take away the access of the ballot to people that are currently incarcerated. What that does is set a trend that we're going to take throughout America, and eventually we will change the 13th Amendment and take that exception clause out, that no man can be held under involuntary servitude or slavery except by for a felony conviction as a means of punishment. The reason we have to change the language, I throw all that in there, and I know I throw a lot of to you at a lot at one time. But the reason all that is really, really significant is for the fact that if you get people's mindset change to stop looking at people that's incarcerated as inmates, as convicted felons, as offenders, as felons, and start, because racism is slowly dwindling down. We're eradicating racism. Be like we just heard Kamala say, Black Lives Matter has brought this conversation to the fruition. All of us, the formerly incarcerated people, our work in all 20 years. I mean, we have all done work to get it to that point. But classism is what totally separates us. And the importance of having that on the ballot is now people see that people that are incarcerated, directly impacted people, are people. That's the key and the operative word. So this is the significance of it. So we have to change the mindsets and not only other people. We have to change it within ourselves. And that's where I believe we fall short a lot of times, because we concentrate on everybody else that's racist and talk about the woman who clutches her purse when a white woman sees young Black men around her and clutch her purse. But we as Black people don't talk about when we get around a whole bunch of Black dudes and stuff and pull up at the store and lock our doors. See, we got to talk about all that too. So the significance of that is that now you cannot classify me as something other than a person that have the same rights, the God-given rights to vote and having a voice the same way that you do.
Okay, and I want you to stay with us. 8 o'clock is going to come so quickly.
Oh yeah.
Before you go, before you hit it to Wanda next, I wondered if you could just be super succinct and talk about your really important work that you do around really helping people to be seen as second chance citizens versus second class citizens, and kind of how the rationale goes into your feeding, transportation, all the programs you do. And then we'll hand it over to Wanda, and then we're going to end with talking about how we can unify at this difficult time. So that's all we're going to accomplish here, everyone, in very short amount of time.
Okay, so what we have to look at is that if I'm a second chance citizen compared to a second class citizen, I hate to say this, but I got to be honest, the spirit that we're facing now during this election and people that's fighting, the 70 million people voting for Trump, that's the same spirit, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, that caused the Civil War when people didn't want to end slavery, right? And consider people, the slaves or Black people or disproportionate people as what? Less than human beings. So if you see me as a person that has made a mistake that deserves a second chance, then you'll never see me as a second class citizen. And one of the biggest things I said earlier when I introduced myself is that we wanted to really speak in our own voice and have our own say so. And that's why it was important to have our own rights, because we felt like other people that were representing us were practicing malpractice. I'm gonna give you this analogy and let it go. When you go to the doctor, what's the first thing a doctor asks you? He asks you what's wrong. Why? Because he can't make a proper diagnosis of the symptoms unless he gets the symptoms from you. He can't make a proper diagnosis of what's wrong. And a lot of people have this preconceived notion that I got the cookie cutter approach or the one size that fits all and want to help you get you right. And when you do that, you're looking at me as a second class citizen instead of a second chance citizen such as yourself.
Well said. Okay, hang tight. We're going to come back to you. We're going to open it all up in a bit. But Wanda, let's talk about the Electoral College and what's on your mind around voting at this very historical moment.
So I just wanted to just add on a little bit to what the pastor was saying. When you think about California and many of the African and Hispanic who are on felony probation still don't have the opportunity to vote. But many of us, when people come to our house doing the census, that's where I want to start at. When they want to take the census to find out how many people's in your house, they ask for your income. A lot of us do not provide that information or do not even take the census. And so when we think about the Electoral College voting process, they gather that data from the census that we provide to determine how many votes or electors will be given for each state. For example, California is able to give 55 electoral votes, but say 1 million people didn't even give part of the census, that would really could decrease the amount of electoral votes that California could have because many people didn't provide the census. So I just wanted to start there and say that it's important for us to, when they do come every few years for the census, to provide that information so that it can give a true calculation of how many electoral college votes we can have in each state. When we think about the electoral college votes, we understand that in 1964, this is where that idea formulated from, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. It was a total of 538 electoral voters, which came from the 438 representatives, the 100 senators, and then the 3 from the District of Columbia, which gave a total of 538 electoral voters. The number that's so significant that everyone was looking for was the 270 number to determine who the president was going to be. It doesn't matter if the president wins all the popular votes. If the president doesn't win by the electoral votes, he still will not be president. So again, it's important for us to fill out our census when we receive them, because it determines the gain and loss of the voters for that particular state. When we think about the electoral votes and it's cast to decide who the president of the United States is, there have been times when, again, that candidate has more popular votes, but does not have the electoral votes. And so because of that, that person will not be, again, elected president. And so again, we talked about voting our last session and how important it is for us to vote. This voting session, it said that there was more African American voter turnout than it has been in the history of voting. And I believe many people wanted to see President Trump out of the office, and so many people ran to the polls to vote. But I always encourage people to just don't vote because of that. You need to vote continually. We need to make sure that we are making a statement in our country by making sure that we are voting. When we look on the system, our system again was built on racism. So what does it mean? It means that when we look at how this voting section went, it talked about how about 84% of African Americans voted for President Biden. The rest voted for Trump. It talks about how many African Americans are in the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. Then they went on to talk about how the Democratic Party is for abortions, where the Republican Party isn't for abortions. And it began to try to make a separation, like we as people are not given to life because we're in a party who is for abortion. And so when we think about all of this and we think about the voting registration in our population, we look at the amount of Hispanics who's able to vote, 32 million, even more than African Americans. The population of Hispanic voters has soared. I mean, it has really increased. And so voting dynamics of who people are voting for has changed because Generation X and the baby boomers are going to be voting. And so we're not voting as years past when the older generation of people was voting. Now the younger generation see things totally different than those who are in their 50s and 60s. This younger generation is more radical. They believe in, you know, diversity. They believe in fairness of all people. Whereas the older generation was kind of stuck in a place of separation between Black and white, where this generation of young adults are coming together and becoming one generation. And so our system of presidency and electing presidency is really changing. One of the things that they said that, oh, even if Donald Trump didn't win this, he could still apply again for presidency. He could still run because he didn't get 2 terms in office like the other presidents got 2 terms. And so we have to really look at all those things and begin to work to change some of these laws. If we don't think that the electoral college vote is working, and we see that some of the swing states, which is a state that either goes Democrat or Republican, which can be like Florida, Ohio, the candidates need those states in order for them to win. Like, for example, California has 55 electoral votes. And even if a president picked up 39 states, if he didn't pick up California, New York, Florida, Texas, he could still be in the process of losing that candidacy because of the amount of electoral votes for the states that has the highest population. And so again, it's important for us to know what state that we live in. If we live in a safe state, which means that that state is either going to be Democrat or Republican. And California is usually a safe state where oftentimes when we're electing presidents, it automatically goes to the Democrats. And so that president is always almost awarded that 55 electoral votes. And then he needs the other states to make that 270. And so that's why we continue to look when we were watching the presidential nomination on television, you see them lighting up the different states because of the electoral votes and the amount needed for that president to win the presidential candidacy. So again, for example, Texas, Florida, and New York make up 96% or 96 points for the electoral voting population, or the 270. And then California, that 55. If a president can get them 4 states, he has quite a few votes, or he has quite a few of those electric votes for him. And then he'll need a few more states, or she'll need a few more states in order to become the president of the United States. And so again, we have to make sure that we are filling out our census. Just like last time I said that it's important for us to vote. It's important for us to fill out those census and give the right amount of people in our household, so that when the time comes every 4 years for them to do the census, and when they run that population, it could determine if California will receive another electoral vote instead of 55, 56, or 57, or if it will decrease. So it's important for us to do that. Sharon?
Okay, so I want to make sure we leave some time for the important topics of like kind of where do we go from here? How do we unify? I can throw those questions up, but I know somebody had directed a question about literacy that I'm gonna screen share, but while I'm screen sharing, I wonder if Pastor Kenneth, you could repeat the question that was shared with you, and then also talk about it a little bit. And thank you to both of you.
Okay, so the question that was asked, I'm looking it back up now. It says, I was wondering what your thoughts on the readability of ballots are and how that impacts your voting rights. Well, my thoughts on that are very, very clear. We need to make sure that people can read and this and that and the other. What we do at Thompson, I see why Sharon was telling me to make sure I talk about, we have an empowerment center. We're able to go inside the prisons and jails, teach people how to read, write, teach people how, we're fighting now, and we have one in a couple of these southern states, Alabama and Georgia. We're fighting for Florida and everywhere else, where they can actually get their Pell Grants and all that while they're inside. But we also have help centers and safe places to where we could go in and help them, with their ballots and all that. Now, it's real tricky, because we have to deal with each sheriff if it's a jail. We have to deal with each warden if it's a prison. And with the prisons, it's a lot easier because we got the Secretary of State that tell them it's the law. So they can't stop us from going in there and helping them. But in the jails, it's up to that sheriff. And he has total autonomy. So we have to deal with that. But, it's very important that we deal with the readability and all that. But, and I guess it's it's real important for y'all young people to ask that, because a lot of older folks that don't deal with people that's incarcerated as much as I do, as much as y'all younger folks deal with folks y'all age, we're losing a lot of our people when it comes to their literacy and knowing how to read and write now. And that's something that seems like in the technical world, where we got computers everywhere, everybody got phones and all that, that's something that seems strange. But a lot of y'all younger folks and people like me that deal with this know we got a lot of literacy going on. One of the things I do want to say pertaining to what Ms. Wanda said about the electors, real quick, Sharon, and to your students, is the fact that when she's talking about the census, y'all, please, please, please pay close attention to what she's saying. Because what they do, if we don't fill out that census, then you know, do y'all know where all the prisons are? Think about where they put all the prisons. In rural white areas, especially here in the South, from the Mason-Dixon line. They're in rural white areas where there's little population. And so they count all them on the census for that area. Yeah. So they could get more money flowing into that city or that rural white area, saying that these people that are incarcerated are part of their population. Now, we fight that when we do the voting rights, of course, because we got it. That's another thing that we've been able to accomplish. When we get somebody absentee ballot that's incarcerated, no matter what jail they're in, or if they're in prison in Alabama or in Mississippi, where we're one that they can vote out of prison, they vote from where they come from, not from where they housed at. And that's the offset to the census. But on the census, they count them where they housed at.
And I believe Alabama is still a Republican state.
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
And most definitely. That's why they come after me so hard. Because, like I said, we changed their 25-year rule in the Senate. And you know, with Doug Jones, we demolished Roy Moore. And they came after me. It don't help that I'm Sharpton's brother either, being down here in Alabama as well. Please don't forget that. We changed my name, but it don't do no good. Now they know.
So, and I do want us to be able to talk about unity. I think this is also a really important thing. And so if we have to have an additional topic and an additional talk to have more time to talk about unity, I think it's not going to get accomplished in one Zoom session. But I wondered if you could talk about some of the obstacles you were telling me about earlier in our pre-conference, Pastor, about some of the things that you were running up against this particular election in prisons in Alabama.
Well, we ran into a lot of obstacles about people, the sheriffs, like I was alluding to earlier, that didn't even want to put up the fact sheets, or didn't even want to put up the informational sheets that people had the right to vote. Kept us from going inside, getting them their right to vote, even though it was the law. They'd rather take the lawsuit and me come after them or them come after me in order to do that. They're purging people off the list, you know, saying that they got felonies from 20 and 30 years ago, purging people off the list who's been inactive for 3 and 4 years and all that. So we had to get them to vote by provisional ballots. And they're probably going to come after me again, you know, y'all pray, because they want to use that voter ID. Y'all know what they just came up with, all these different laws about voter ID, right? So y'all know what I did with my smart self, right? We the most identified Negroes in the country. I went and got our fingerprints and our mugshots. Y'all tell me that's not proving who we are. Guess what? Your municipal court says this who we are by y'all taking our fingerprints and y'all detaining us. So y'all can't tell me that ain't a sufficient ID. And so I'm ahead about that one. But anyway, that's what we've been able to do, and some of the obstacles we've met. I mean, they just purged about 30,000 people off the voting list in Alabama. They purged about I think it was close to almost 200 in Florida. If y'all see what happened in Florida, man, they just demolished Florida with that. But you know, they did it in 2000. In Chicago, they did it in 2004. And in Georgia, they did it with a few people and all. Those are the most states that I've been keeping up with. Excuse me.
Okay, this is awesome. So just because, here's the questions, everybody, that we have kind of in the back of our mind. But in the meantime, I wonder, because the clock is ticking away, I wonder if students, if anybody present wants to just share ideas about this, and if anything pops up, Kulia's offered to be to kind of amplify a couple of the questions or comments, and also if there's anything that catches the eyes of the speakers that you want to address. And so everybody go ahead and put something in the chat, something that you're trying to do to find unity, or some way that you're hoping that we could all be allies and support each other. And
while y'all doing that, I want to say this, Sharon. Let's look at unity in a different perspective, right? Mm-hmm. I always love to put people in the perspective of people, just being people. Mm-hmm. And knowing that the first thing that we have to take away is this preconception that we got to compete with each other. We have to complete each other. I can't do without you. You can't do without me. I'm a field person. You know, there's a lot of people out there that can mobilize people, but ain't too good at organizing. I'm a field person. I can get people there. I'm very good. I'm a preacher. I'm articulate, prolific. Sometimes I get a little tongue-tied. Sometimes I get a little funny, but I can get the people. But I'm not the paper person. You know, and so let's look at that unity is not only the fact of us coming together, but the fact of us being together in order to move this movement in a real perspective. One of the things that Trump did, and I'll stop talking, is Trump took away that neutral zone and dividing line. That neutral zone of white folks that say, hey, you know, I ain't racist. I got black friends. Well, you know, my response to that is, hell, I got black friends too. So what that mean? You know, but thing is, it took away that neutral zone that you just got black friends. No, now you got to be white, or either you got to be racist, or you got to, it's one or the other. And he also took away that dividing line of whether you're part of the movement or whether you're not. So we're in a position now where everybody empowers everybody else. We got more white folks across this country, not only in California where y'all at, but across this country with Black Lives Matter signs than we ever had in existence. We had the biggest turnout that we ever had in existence, but we still dealing with that same spirit that came to us and caused the Civil War when they wanted to go against slavery. And those are 70 million. But guess what? We got to encapsulate them, not capture them, encapsulate them. Encapsulate them into a world that we're so unified to where they can't just come at me or come at Sharon and come at you or whatever. But we're so unified that they don't even know who the hell the leader is. Hello.
Thank you, Wanda. What do you want to add? And it does look like Shiley has added a question. You can take that, or you can also share your thoughts on.
I was looking at Shiley's question, and the pastor kind of answered that question. One of the things that we have to look at and know is there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about the entire body, that the eye can't say to the hand that I don't need you, and the hand can't say to the foot that I don't need you, because all parts are very important to have that body operate the way that it needs to operate. And so in looking at the question that as we look at organizing or getting started, how do we both take action and not step on the toes of folks who are already doing the work? My answer to that would be to join in, because in order for us to make the change that we want to make, it's going to require a collective, united front of us. And so it's important for you to know that there's a place for you to work, to do what you have been created and designed, that skill, that talent, that ability that you have. There is a place for you to utilize that to further this movement. One of the things that I love about our younger generation is they do not fear, and they stand up for what they see wrong, and they stand up for right. And so it's important that as you get involved, when you see wrong, that you don't just close your eyes when you see the wrong, but that you keep your eyes open and be willing, to take that camera out, be willing to say something, just don't bypass it. I had the opportunity to speak at Reverend Al Sharpton's event, Get Your Knee Off of My Neck. And I spoke at that event. And one of the things that I told the crowd there is that we have to all come together and make that united front and say, you know what, when we see the racial injustices taking place in our society, we have to say, you know what, we're not going to take this, and we want to change. And we work together to make sure that a change takes place.
Awesome. And then it looks like another question popped up. Do you want to take that one, Pastor?
So what was the question?
The question was, how do we change it from a us versus them mentality? In order to make change, we need to be able to pull allies from the other side of the aisle, but right now it seems that they won't even give us a chance or don't even care.
Well, one of the biggest things that I have a problem with is being shy. And so I confront people exactly where they are. And so an example of what the question was, I went through the day, I had my conference call with about 20 different states, and there's people on the inside. And they kept throwing up, yeah, man, we on the inside, and us organizers on the inside, and and it started irritating me. And I couldn't figure out why I was getting irritated. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm out here fighting and sacrificing and giving my life to make sure that people see all of us directly impacted, formerly and currently incarcerated people as people. But you keep separating us. Talking about people on the inside. So when I'm talking to Republicans, I asked them, I said, let me ask you, what do you really want? Do you want separatism from people with color like me? Do you want safe places for your children? Do you want to be able to have a safe home, this and that and the other? Yeah. Well, this is what I want. So my thing to you is, how can we accomplish this together with all of us safe? Because as long as people like me and you see me differently from you, then you have some kind of fear or some kind of anger. How do I eradicate that fear from you that I'm not going to rob you or steal you or take something from you? And or how do I negate that anger to where you see me as a person that want the same thing you want? I've run into it with a person. We have real conversations. Y'all gonna think I'm crazy when I'm finna say, but I'm gonna tell you. And he said, well, I just get fearful of these young black guys, this and that and that. I said, well, hell, I'm scared of them too sometimes. I said, but the problem is I can relate to them and you can't. And he said, well, I can't relate to them because I'm white. I said, that's not the problem. The problem ain't that you're white. The problem is that you won't communicate with them. The only reason I can relate to them because I communicate with them. And it ain't that I know the Ebonics. It's that I talk to them. So I can have an understanding with them. It ain't got nothing to do with my experience, this and that and other. It's about me communicating. How do we change it from us to them? We start letting them see that it's all about all of us. I want the same thing for you that I want for me. I want you to be safe just like I want to be safe. I capture people by feeding people, right? And mobilize people. You hear me, Kulia? And everybody thinks that it's just for the homeless people. And I'm trying not to cry. Because Sharon, I get more white people converted to this movement than I do homeless people. You know why? Because they're coming to help feed the homeless. And while they're there, they hugging somebody that's stinking. They're praying with somebody that just got through smoking drugs. And now they start to see them differently as a person. And then that same person that they call themselves coming to feed and help changes the tire on their car. And they start to see the usefulness in them. And then it's no longer us and them, it's a we and our. And what can we do to change this dilemma? Because if you don't help me change the dilemma that's in the bottom of the city, then you're not safe in the top of the city. Your gated community is not going to help you. Because my gated community can't hold me, but as long as my sentence.
Oh my God. I think that, I personally would stay on here all night with everyone. This is such a great conversation. We already have Wanda on the hook to come back more times. Pastor Kenny, do you think I can get you to come back in the future? Can I invite you back?
Whenever you get ready. Get ready. And Wanda, I want to say thank you so much, Miss Wanda. Whether you know it or not, I was there in the background when you was there at my brother's event. And I didn't get a chance to speak with you. If you notice, they rushed. If you remember, they rushed me and Reverend Toon out to go speak at the next panel. But I just want to thank you so much because your son's death and what you have done has really, really caused a ripple effect. And more than just California, it is rippling down here, man. More people, and I don't know what it is, but I think nowadays, and what's happening in all, Miss Wanda, more people are reading about Oscar Grant than they did ever. Me and Sharon was talking about that earlier, where we Sharon. Mm-hmm. And down here, all of a sudden, more people are reading about it. And in prison, more people are reading about it in the southern states than they were before.
Well, we just a side note on that. The case is just got to reopen for the other officer to work to get him charged. Even though it's 11 years later, I'm still grateful that she heard us remind her, the district attorney, that she said she was going to charge that officer. And so we held a press conference, and during our press conference, she announced that she was opening up the case again, and she has a team of investigators. And so we don't want her to just open it up, but we want her to charge the officer for his action with my son's death.
Amen. Okay.
He's on mute.
Oh, my friend, you're on mute. We want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's why we need y'all young folks. See, I just did that, didn't even know it. I ain't even got all my fingers and didn't even know I had to hit that. But anyway, I'm here. Whatever y'all need from me or whatever, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to call me. I don't care how busy I am. This is a movement, man. And, my 75-year-old mother said the movement never stopped. People just stop moving. And Dr. C.T. Vivian, before he died, he sat me down for about an hour and a half. He said, look, I don't want you to say this is a new phenomenon, a new movement. I want you to say this is a continuation thereof. He said, but you know why the movement is not unified like it was back in 1965 and the civil rights movement and all that? And I said, why? He said, Doc, he said, because everybody trying to get their own organization, do their own goddamn thing. He said, I'm so glad they come up with the BLM. I said, Black Lives Matter? He said, whatever the hell you call it, because now everybody got one umbrella that they get up under to catch this rain. God bless y'all.
So before we go, I know we're getting past time and I don't feel like anyone's rushing off of here. There's a couple things I wanted to do. I think everybody has moved in some different kind of way. I can feel an energy. I feel emotional. I think this is very powerful today. I'd love for everybody to take a second and write a phrase of something that we're taking away from being here today. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep on talking while you do that. Mine is of course stuck. I'm just feeling so much gratitude for everybody being willing. And I really appreciate the way that Wanda and Pastor Kenneth are really, I feel like working as a team to deliver a powerful message. You're a strong team. I like it. Yeah, let's just put our words down. And then I'd love to take a screenshot so that we can document all of us being together today. I'm just watching all kinds. I'm seeing change, inspired, empowered. Inspired. Awesome. Okay, well, let's everybody unmute and give a round of applause to our speakers before we take a screenshot for everybody. So let's do that.
Right, all right.
And then don't go away, everyone. If you're willing to turn on your camera for a quick minute so I can take our picture, that would be amazing. Let's see, can I do it? Okay. Well, we got a pretty good crew. I think I have to do two because there's so many people. All right, smile, everyone. Going on to the next page, smile again. All right, so I will, I'll hang back for a minute, and if anybody has to go, we understand. We hope you join us. Next week, we have life coaching, and then in January onwards, we'll continue with more of these programs, and I'm going to be in touch with you, Pastor Kenny, to see if I can get you to come, to see when.
I got a few more minutes if y'all want to talk. I wanted to ask, is mostly everybody here in California?
Yeah.
Most of the students? Are y'all in Oakland or spread it out throughout California? Which one?
We're mostly in the East Bay. So these students go to St. Mary's College. So they're like about 10 miles away from like Oakland area.
Okay, so Prop 17 just won over there. It gave us the opportunity to get about 50,000 more people the right to vote. That's incarcerated in jails and stuff over there. And some of my colleagues worked on it real good. My brother from Georgia and Florida, y'all get in touch with me. I'm gonna ask Sharon to go ahead and put my number out there. One thing that I love to do is I put my cell number out there. You don't call no office, and I don't hide and all that. I know if some of y'all like me, if you can't give me your cell number, I just don't even want to talk to you. You know, I just wait till you call me, because I'm just as important as everybody else, and everybody just as important as me. You know, and so my cell number up there, if you would put it up there, Sharon, they can call me, especially in Florida and in Georgia. One of the things I want y'all to look at is where y'all at as far as people in the streets and people in jails. One of the biggest factors that you have of people in the streets and people in jails, they just waiting on you, especially you as students, man. You're waiting on somebody to mentor you, help you, give you help in your experience that you don't have. But guess what? They waiting on your youthfulness. They waiting on your youthfulness. They waiting on you to be able to come to them so they can express that stuff. A lot of people don't have enough outlet. And you could be their outlet and their outsource. And if you become their outsource, it becomes your insource. And then it motivates you and moves you in them. That's another way of changing the us and them. If we could change the us and them between us, Joshua, then it's easier to change it with the other side. Because when they start seeing us respect each other, it diminishes their power against us in our division. I just want to make sure we note that before we go.
Also, really quickly, before we go, I wanted to thank you on behalf of BSU and the center. Wanda, thank you for having this series. It's been very insightful. Thank you for attending tonight, Pastor Kenneth. Doing great listening to y'all talk. We hope to work with all of y'all further in the future. There's a lot of big things coming. And thank you.
I'm sorry, Kulia, but I'm not sorry. And all the rest of y'all that, you know, I'm not a religious person. I'm a very spiritual person, even though I'm a pastor. But Kulia, and I know you gonna want to get me, but I got to tell you this, and I'm gonna be through after this, Sharon. I promise you. But God, and I've been holding back. I've been holding back, Kulia, the whole time, not to say this to you, but if I don't, I promise I won't sleep tonight. So God is finna work some stuff in your family. I'm not gonna go into what, but he's definitely have showed me, and he's finna work that out in such a way that you've been praying for. And I see he's not letting me use unity. It's like the meshing of your people coming together that you've been asking for. So don't think he hasn't heard you. Don't think he hasn't heard you. That's all I want to say. We'll talk some more.
Definitely. We'll definitely be in touch. Thank you so much. That actually means a lot. Yeah. Thank you once again. This has been incredible.
And again, I also want to make sure to shine the light on Kulia, who's been a really important liaison for this event and helping to bring BSU and Center for Women Gender Equity together. So thank you again for that.
Use that energy, Kulia. Everything that's fighting against your people, and you know what God is showing me right now? Used it I love the way you harnessing it and garnishing it to drive you instead of depress you. I'm gonna leave that right there. All right?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
God bless. God bless y'all.
Does anybody else have anything else before people leave?
All right, God bless y'all. Khalil got my spirit. I got to go.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take good care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.